How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in plates? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. Guys, today I'm super excited to introduce you to a good friend of mine, a brother from another mother, Mr. Adam Smith, the owner of Savage Consulting, Savage Freedom Tactical, and a former Special Forces Green Beret for 17 years. He's a father and a business owner, as I mentioned. I think you're really going to enjoy his story, and we're going to have some funny conversations, I'm sure. Welcome, Adam. Thanks for coming on today.
What's up, bro? I appreciate you having me, man.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, man. Like from the moment that you and I connected, I was like, damn, we are very in alignment with our thought process and kind of backgrounds and where we've come from. And so I'm excited to have you on, and I'm excited to hear more about what you've got going on and tell more people about it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. I know from the first time we had a conversation, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? This is awesome. This dude's talking shit and having a great time. I think it was, I don't know if it was a text message or something, but something along the lines of, I think there's a mention of space docking and like CLP. I think that was like gun oil and space docking or some crazy shit. I don't even know. It was awesome.
Yeah. We hit it off right away. That was for sure. And since then we've been in touch and trying to figure out what we can do together. So like it all starts here, and let's tell the people more about you and what you're doing. You come from an executive training background and you lead firearms training and stuff for civilians and executives, right?
Yeah. So when I got out, the transition period, and we can talk about anything you want to talk about. When I got out, the transition period was hard, but I got a pretty phenomenal hand up from a good buddy of mine who's a former Navy SEAL. And so he brought me on as the director of training for a tactical training company based out of Louisville, Kentucky. The company's called Norse Tactical. And they are, when I was there, and they still do this the same way now, is that they only train law enforcement military personnel. They don't train civilians. And it was phenomenal. It was great. Like I figured out that I figured out that my skills from the military translated into the civilian market. But it was sort of just scratching the surface. And then I figured out that, oh, well, there's other translatable skill sets that we can bring into the civilian marketplace that aren't regularly spoken to and also aren't regularly executed on. And that's a really interesting piece, like leadership considerations and mentality and thought process and obstacle overcomes and how to actually plan. And it's just, there's so much stuff involved. There's so much stuff. And I didn't even know. I didn't even realize when I got out, like, dude, I was ready to kill myself because I couldn't find a job. I literally had no mission, no purpose, no identity. Like, who the fuck am I? I'm going to put a pistol in my mouth and end it. And now, we're at, what is this, 2022. So that puts us at 16 is 4, 22, 6. So 6 years later.
Yeah.
6 years later.
Yeah.
And it's huge. It's big. So now we do everything from, we do corporate leadership experiences. So we do leadership mentorship. How do you train executive level staff? How do you get buy-in from your mid-level staff? How do you get buy-in from mid-level leadership? This concept of sovereignty of action, it's a conversation that we have a lot about the idea and ability to create left and right limits for people to operate in, but then you give them space to operate based on an understanding of what, the desired end state is. There's a lot of, for lack of a better term, there's a lot of like Green Beret-isms that come into the conversation for executive leadership just because of how we function on teams. And we also train military law enforcement. We also train civilians. So in the civilian sector, we train people on how to become better assets for themselves, their family, and their community. And the number one piece is, especially in like male business leadership development and personal dev, that's a good way to say it. Male business leadership development, personal dev. There's a problem. And the problem is everybody talks about be a good provider, create security, create generational wealth, that's fucking awesome. I agree. Do those things. And how do you actually protect your family? Like, it's cool that you're creating financial protection, and it's cool that you're creating longevity of wealth, and it's cool that you're setting up businesses so that there's going to be a powerful inheritance and that your children, your grandchildren won't want for anything. How do you actually protect them physically? Like, when a high stress threat presents itself, how do you show up? How much training have you done there? It's cool that you can tell me about KPIs and ROIs on freaking joint merger and joint ventures and all the cool business terminology, right? We can toss it, but that's awesome. And like, how do you shoot the gun that's in the gun safe? Or how do you actually operate and function with the weapon systems you have in your house? Or how do you have your mentality set to respond to a situation and not react to a situation based on the amount of training that you've gotten? So it's cool that you have the ability to do this other shit, but man, there's a big piece that's missing. Yeah. And so that's the focus.
Yeah. I love it.
Excuse me while I have my pre-workout.
And that's why I mean, you and I have talked a lot about this. I mean, I run a mastermind group that kind of is in alignment with exactly what you're talking about. It's creating well-rounded men, and not being singularly focused on business or finances. Like I'm really passionate about being a great father and having more great fathers in our community and leaders in general. But having that physical aptitude is important. It's an important piece, and you really can't sacrifice any area of your growth and consider yourself a well-rounded person, in my opinion. So like those skills need sharpened and honed constantly.
Yeah. And anybody who says like violence never solved anything, please come say it to my face, because I will demonstrate how violence can solve a disagreement. And I will demonstrate it right now. The fact of the matter is that there are people in the world that are willing to bring great violence upon you and the people that you love. They are. And there's not any amount of peace mentality or hippie hugs and unicorn fairy tale there's no amount of any of that shit that's going to change that person's mentality of utilizing violence against you and your family.
Certainly.
And so if that's the case, like, you got to be prepared for it.
Yep. I have that conversation frequently. And I think there's a lot of delusion out there that these things don't exist because we're so privileged to not have to be exposed to things like that. And I think people have lost sight of the reality of who's supposed to be the protectors in the community. And it's supposed to be adults. And I think we've laid down and abdicated that responsibility to the government and other authority figures, if you will.
Yeah.
Public
government,
schools,
public school.
Like
exactly. Yeah. Doctors at the hospital. Like,
right.
Yeah. We really, parents in general, has sort of abdicated their position to be the primary rearers of children, right? They're like, you as the adult of the house, as a parent, your responsibility is to raise and rear your child, teach them as much as you can, perspective and understanding. And like, there's so many different aspects to it. And there's this battle. God, the people that have victims breed victims. Like victims breed victims. And it is what it is. And we've gotten to, but everybody knows the phrase and saying, soft people create hard times create hard men create good times create soft men. And the cycle happens all over again. And there's a lot of validity to that statement, but we're at a position and a place in the United States, especially right now, where the silk slippers, the silk slipper wearers are so disconnected from the reality of the world that there's a huge level and sense of entitlement. There's a huge level and sense of, if you disagree with me, then you're obviously an ist or an ism or whatever we want to call you. Also, your words are violent. Like, wait, what on what fucking planet? On what planet were words, violence is an action. It's a verb. Violence, being violent is a verb, right? Words are not violent. My action upon your person is violent. So this concept, this sense of entitlement, this level of like, God, I just want to call it patty cake bullshit. it is breeding into our children. And the next generation is going to be another generation of entitled, silk slipper wearing, overly emotional, overly like, God, man, it fires me up. Look, don't ever think that I would ever tell you that emotions are a bad thing. We all have feelings. We all have emotions, and we can have a conversation about feelings and emotions. We can. I have feelings and emotions. Obviously, you're seeing it right now if you're watching this and you're hearing it in my voice. But the fact is that oftentimes people that constantly react from feeling and emotion don't have the ability to respond from competence, and education, right? They only react from feeling and emotion. That's it.
Right. Yep. And I think that's the issue. It's like social media. It's like being worried about everybody else instead of taking care of your own fucking business. Like if you were focused on being that well-rounded human being that we're discussing and going about your business and checking your boxes on a daily basis, like we would have a much better society. Like if you had to personally take care of your shit. And you mentioned doctors, like if you had to focus on your health, if you had to understand that that's your responsibility rather than a pill's responsibility to solve it for you. Like I just feel like the more insular I get and focused on my mission and what I'm doing, the less time I have for worrying about whatever the fuck other people are doing. Right.
Yeah. It doesn't make you less empathetic. Right. It doesn't make you less empathetic. That's not the case. It just makes you have less fucks to give about all the other shit happening.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And I've progressively gotten more insulated throughout the last 2 years for sure. Like I'm worried about my house and my people in my house. And like that is my focus. Yeah. And I try to help everybody that I possibly can that wants to hear what I have to say, or half the people don't give a fuck or don't like me, which is fine too. That stuff doesn't bother me. I am just focused on my mission though alone and the people that I can touch and affect in my life. And I think we'd all be better off if we really focused on our personal situation and our accountability.
Yeah, 100%. I think the reason why so at least in my experience, I think the reason why a lot of people don't focus on their own situation. Let me rephrase this. The reason why a lot of people don't take ownership for their own situation is because it's far easier to be a victim and find validation in victimhood than it is to take any ownership of current circumstance. Because if you take ownership for current circumstance, that means that you have the power and ability to change it. So if you recognize that where you are, the circumstance you find yourself in, it may not be 100% your fault. Like this, Jocko Willink wrote the book Extreme Ownership. I think I like the book. He says some good shit, but I also think that there's a level of it that's also like extreme martyrdom. And so there's a piece that's missing in the book. And the piece that's missing is the demand of ownership in general, right? Yes, I'm the leader and ultimately it's on me. However, I also have to have the ability to recognize and identify your deficiency and mentor you through them. But we don't see that happening in families. We don't see that happening in the community. We don't see that happening across the board in general. What we see happening is a constant seeking and supporting and validation of a victimhood mentality, and victims breed victims. So,
well, I think that's the level of ability to shy away from the reality. And we have so many inputs and outside influences right now that we have the ability to stick our head in the sand very easily and fuck around. Like, okay, I'm just going to go drone out on Facebook and scroll, or I'm going to go watch Netflix and not worry about my situation. Oh, the bills are all due and I can't pay them. God, that feels really shitty. And so instead of like hitting that or just taking that shame and guilt on head on and identifying it and then working your way out of your problem, you don't have to solve your problem because there's like so many avoidance tactics that you can involve yourself in.
That's one piece. I mean, that's one piece,
Certainly.
Yeah, 100%. The term sedation gets used a lot, like sedating yourself either through drugs, alcohol, sex, TV, whatever it might be. It's really reality avoidance, 100%. That's a big piece of it. The other big piece too is that it's easier to create the excuse that you don't have the ability to get out of your position because there's either people, a system, whatever it might be that's oppressing you in your position that you're in. Dude, I hear it almost every night. I moderate on a couple of shows on the Clubhouse app. I do podcasts. I have regular engagements with people, and there's the phrase "I can't." Oh my God! Like I hear it all the time. Well, I just can't do this, or I just can't do that. Man, there's some things that you might not be physically able to do. Sure. But I guarantee you can get off your couch. I guarantee you can learn a new skill. I guarantee you can read and learn some new words. I guarantee it that there's ability that you can. You just choose not to because it's easier not to. Just easier not to do it. Not everybody look, dude, let's be real. Also, there's not everybody wants to do it. Yeah. And so because they don't want to do it, they feel guilty for not wanting to do it. And then they want to, again, seek validation why it's okay not to do. Look, check it out. If you don't want to do, here's your permission. You don't have to. Don't do it. You don't have to seek validation for anything. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. You have the right to sit on your ass and do nothing.
What do you think the number one key to success is if you're a person that feels like the odds are stacked against you starting out? Because I go back to the saying that like somewhere someone with far worse circumstances than you has done exactly what you're fucking trying to do. Like and the internet is a great equalizer in that it shows us those fucking people. Yep. Like there's guys with no legs doing shit that like
climbing Mount Everest.
About. Right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's real fucking hard to make excuses when you actually use the Google and, because it'll open your eyes to fucking people that are much more resilient than you. And so, sorry, let me reframe my question. Okay. So if you're out there,
I think it's a good question. I want to answer it as you asked it. Can I answer it as you asked it? Because it's a good question. All right. So what's the key to success is acknowledge and accept your current reality for what it is, but don't accept it for what it has to be. Straight up. And that's not some existential concept. Acknowledge and recognize the reality of your current situation.
Yep.
Where you say the number one key to success without any question is acknowledging and accepting the fact of reality. Not creating stories that supports whatever bullshit you want to put yourself in. There's a big difference between saying I'm being held back or I'm in a shitty situation than there is saying I find myself in a shitty situation and I don't want to be here anymore, right? One is constantly seeking to be a victim and the other is recognizing that you're in a situation or position you don't want to be in and you simply are choosing to change. And here's the piece, and this is the biggest piece that I think people miss. And I hear this argument too. Well, Adam, you don't really understand, bro. Like, you don't understand what it is to be in that position. Look, dude, I put a fucking pistol in my mouth. Like, I didn't come from any home of means. My family was upper low class, lower middle class. There's no generational wealth in my family. Not only do we live check to check, but my mom and dad were constantly trying to figure out what bills to put off paying so we could keep feeding the family.
Yep.
So I don't know what any of that shit is. I don't know what it is to come from any of those things. And I got such in a deep, dark place. I wrote my suicide note, put a pistol in my mouth. Like, let's get real. But the difference is that in the moment at my most hopeless, in the most hopeless moment of my life, I got a hand up from a buddy. And that was a demonstration to me that the current situation I find myself in is not only not permanent, but it's not one I have to be in. And if you want a key to success, then I'm going to offer you two. I'm going to offer you two high recommendations that you have to just go with. You just have to fucking go with it. Okay. The first recommendation is acknowledge the reality that you're in doesn't have to be the reality that you stay in. That's the first thing, the first one. And the second thing I'm going to give you is this: ask for help. Like, I'm not saying ask for money. Don't fucking ask for money. Don't do that. Ask for mentorship, ask for guidance, ask for someone who's already come out of that spot. Ask for them to help you, support you. Like nobody's going to rescue you. Don't look for a rescuer. Don't look for someone to a savior, because that's not a win-win for anybody. But ask for help. It's 100% okay and 100% acceptable to recognize that you don't know what you don't know and you don't really know where to start. Just fucking ask.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think that's great. Do you think that the ability, because I feel like one of my innate superpowers is just awareness and the ability to accept exactly where the fuck I'm at in spite of all my flaws, and of like right now, like this is the situation that I have created for myself, good or bad. And like, now I have the ability to move forward. And do you think that I hear that in what you're saying? Like it's situational assessment, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that comes from like our backgrounds, or do you think that like that is just personalities?
It's twofold, but dude, I was going to say the reason why I'm laughing is because like I simply have to accept the situation I find myself in. When you're in the middle of a 30-mile ruck and you have an 80-pound ruck on your back and you're at like mile fucking 12 or mile 15, and you know that you're not done until you hit all 30 miles, or you're in the middle of selection and you haven't slept in 3 days, or you're in the middle of ranger school and you're in freaking swamp phase. Like, dude, in the moment, you're sitting in a swamp. It's ice cold. You're in the wet. You're in the mud. You're in the muck. You're literally in the water trying to figure out how to stay warm. And it's that moment where like, I realize that this is my current situation and that I have definitively put myself here. And then the next question is, what the fuck was I thinking? So yeah, I think it's twofold, dude. I think there's personality and I think it's learned. And I think that if you have a personality that feeds on determination and also recognizes that like you as an individual have the ability to fight, then you also then have the ability to put yourself in a position to learn the other piece. Because I was just embrace the suck, right? Like this sucks. Yeah. I have to embrace this.
Well, I think it's acceptance of your situation too. Like because I get into conversations with my wife and my staff and stuff like that. Like none of the shit that happens yesterday really matters at all.
Cool
like,
story,
where the fuck are we? Like we lost you thousands of dollars. Okay. Like where are we right now? And where are we going from here? Like reflection on all that shit that went wrong or went right. Quite frankly, I think people are guilty of celebrating their shit for too long too. Like
100%, bro.
I mean, that's how you slip, and that's how you lose your grip on where you're going. And I've done that. I've been guilty of that. Coasting, had a little bit of success, was like, oh, this is gravy. This is good. This is what it's all about. And that complacency makes you go backwards. Like I'm a huge believer that you're either fucking growing or you're dying. And like that goes for business, that goes for your life, your body, all of it. So you're either making positive investments or you're going backwards.
Oh yeah, 100%. But we always called it cool story, bro. Right? Like, oh yeah, I was doing this. We're going to do this thing, and we did all this. That's fucking cool story, bro. Cool story. Yeah. What are you doing right now? What are you doing right now? I think it's important that people celebrate their wins, because especially as men, we don't really, and especially A-type personalities that are in business, we don't really celebrate wins, right? It's like, cool, done, next thing, boom. And we're going right into the next thing. And then we're constantly playing this catch-up game of trying to, we get to a point where all we see is the negative and we don't really accept or acknowledge a positive. And I agree 100%. There's way too much fucking celebration going on for way too long, right?
Yeah.
Like own the win, identify what you did right, identify the deficiencies of the actions that ultimately got in the way of creating success. Don't linger on it, because it comes down to action. It comes down to creating an action plan. It comes down to execution. Identify what went right, identify what didn't work, put it into the next repeatable plan so that you can scale and go. Right? High fives, butt slaps, good games, sweet job, bro. And then get after it.
Yep. Well, I think it is like they're definitely it can be a terrible burden to bear, I should say, because it's never going to be enough. Like the wins are never going to be enough. Like whatever you accumulate's never going to be enough. I mean, I just don't think people are wired that way. We're wired to grow and we're wired to evolve and continue to move forward. And I think that's why people that don't push are miserable inside, and it causes a lot of other issues.
I think that people that don't push and don't want to seek growth or betterment, I think they're miserable inside. I think they're miserable inside because they only see the negative of their situation. I mean, let's think about this for a second. Why are guys committing suicide? And everybody wants to talk about post-traumatic stress. Sure, that plays a role, or traumatic brain injury, and they're not wired 100% right. Like, hey, got both of them, got it. But like, what's the actual reason? What's the actual reason? I mean, if we dig a little deeper, I think the number one issue in veteran suicide is a loss of identity.
Loss of identity. Yeah, that's where I was going with it. For sure. And yeah, especially in the special operations community, in my opinion.
Yeah. But I think that plays a giant role in the civilian community as well. Like, I think a big piece of the fact of why people don't want to go get up and get after it, I think it's because they don't know who the fuck they are. And they don't feel like they bring any value into the world. Yeah. And they don't have an identity to hold on to. They don't have a fundamental understanding of self. And therefore, and it's hard. Dude, it's fucking hard. It's hard to figure out who you are, man. Like, to accept who you are, acknowledge who you are, and recognize that you can grow and be better, be a better who you are. Like, that's hard to do. That takes a shit ton of work.
It does. It takes a lot of work.
And so I think it's easier to just sit on your couch and be miserable in a position of anonymity to self, because you don't even know who you are. Right. So you have no idea. Your identity is your current situation. Yeah. Not the possibility of something greater. That's what, like, dude, my identity was the color of the hat that I wore on my head.
Right. Yeah. Same. I mean, yeah. And I think that's a huge deal. I mean, the way it translates in the civilian world, with having, if you haven't been in special operations or something like that and had that loss of identity, I think it's an interesting conversation of how you get there from just a regular civilian background, right? Like, because they do what they're supposed to do, follow the track that they're supposed to follow, go to college, get a W-2 job, work as a cog in a corporation, mm-hmm. and then they think that they've made it, but then they find out, I think what they're feeling, because I worked in the corporate world after I got out of the military, and I mean, that was a powder keg of emotions, because you would you're really shackled to just being a number, and it's very interesting. There's no level of achievement. Like you could really excel versus really do poorly, and you'd get the same ratings.
No, not only that, but dude, let's be real, bro. When you excel and from our community, when you excel, everybody came home alive. When you did poorly, like, people didn't. And so the level of significance and reward from a successful operation in the military or a failed operation in the military, and the level of experience when you step into the civilian market, it's not the same. It's not the same. And it's hard to attribute life or death aspects to a joint venture or closing on an investment deal.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same. And so the shift has to be a focus on the why behind the what I'm doing, because that's where I find the level of significance that I found in the military. Yeah. Why is this joint venture? So we have this conversation to a buddy of mine a few days ago, and he asked me, he said, dude, why are some of these projects you're working on so important to you? And I said, because they're my missions. They're my missions that are directly attributed to my purpose, which is a derivative of my identity. I define these missions for me. And he said, yeah, and we had this very similar conversation, Jeff. And he was like, yeah, but dude, these missions aren't life and death. And I said, for who? Who are they not life and death for? Think about this for a second. If I can grow my company to and have the ability to hire 4 to 12 special operations dudes that are lost in the sauce when they're getting out of the military, and I can pay them a wage or a salary of $100,000 to $150,000 a year, do you think that might help them re-identify new purpose in the civilian market after finding significance and purpose in the military as a special operations dude? And he was like, well, I guess. And I was like, dude, it saves fucking lives. Like, if I have the ability to bring these guys in and help them become not only entrepreneurs, but show them, more importantly, show them that there is a possibility to a life after the military, after special operations career, where they can make good money, find significance, redefine themselves, find what their purpose is, and set their own mission targets and go after it. Dude, that's fucking life-changing. That is life and death.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic mission. I think what you spoke to before that, though, was that like the thing I see in the civilian world is people don't know themselves, so they don't know a purpose, because your purpose is not to go be a paper pusher and a data entry person. Like, that's not a purpose. What happens is you get wrapped up in these corporate jobs and things like that, and you start paying the bills, and you've got golden handcuffs on because you start getting direct deposits of a certain amount of money, and that starts paying the bills. You've got a mortgage, you've got kids, you've got car payments, blah, 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 blah. And you have to suppress. Either you don't ever do the work to determine your purpose, or you know your purpose and you deny it. And if you deny it, then those are the people that are miserable, right? Like, I mean, they're both miserable. They're just both miserable for different reasons. And it's because they'll never take the risk, and they can't see how to break the cycle of what they're doing to actually pursue something that's important to them.
Yeah. Yes. And there's a huge, I think there's another big aspect to this as well. So let's take, for example, an individual who finds himself in corporate America, and they have those golden handcuffs. Let's just use them as an example, right? So here you are, beautiful golden handcuffs. You're making great money, more money than you ever could potentially expect yourself to make ever in the entirety of your life. And like, dude, just it's there. Like, you're fucking getting it. You're driving a nice car. You have a nice house. You're working 9 to 5, and you fucking hate every second of it. And you hate every second of it. I know. I know. This is the reason why I'm referencing it, because you're a great example. And you hate every second of it. You hate every fucking moment of it. And all the while, you have this feeling in your gut. There's something more. There's something more. And you know, and you can feel there's something more. There's something more. But here's the thing. There's something more, and I'm not sure what that more is, but I definitively know that if I step away from what I'm doing, I may not be able to feed my family. And so the golden handcuffs, the fact of the matter is that handcuffs are put on you involuntarily. Golden handcuffs are kept on voluntarily.
100%. It's out of fear.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's the fear of failure. It's the fear of, what if I try this and I don't make it? What happens to my family? What if I try this and don't make it? How do I show my ass? What if I try this and don't make it? What are other people going to say about me? What if I try this and don't make it? They're all right. Every person who said don't do it was fucking right. And now I got to prove them. And now prove them right. Dude, I say a big giant fuck you for a couple different reasons. Reason one, why is your target just to make enough money to feed your family? Why isn't your target to make enough money to create wealth for your family? That's the first reason. The second reason is, if you have a skill and you can provide a service that solves a problem, you don't have to quit your job. Don't quit your job. Keep your job. Let the job feed your business. Let that revenue give you a little bit of buffer and runway so you can build a small foundation to step on, and then step the fuck on it and get after it, and then step away from it. Like, dude, there's no reason not to have multiple revenue streams. There's no reason not to. And there's also no reason to completely cut the lifeline, if that's what's feeding your family, to jump out on a venture. Now, this is, there's a lot of people who would argue with me, a lot of people in the entrepreneurship world, a lot of people that are in the personal development. Adam, you can't say that, bro. You got to go all in. You got to go all in. Let me tell you what all in is. All in is recognizing that you're not happy doing what you're doing and that you want to make a change. All in is then taking action on developing the plan and executing the plan to create change in your life, while also understanding that you have a strategic responsibility to provide for your family and continue to pay your bills. All in is recognizing and building and growing and putting in the extra hours of effort and work, even after you worked a 9-to-5 job, at the end of the day and in the morning before you go in, and also sacrificing time with your family, because you know in the long run, this investment in self is going to provide giant wealth growth on the back end. All in is then recognizing that not only have you created the foundation and the ability to do what you're doing, and you're taking action and you're executing it and you're not stepping on your own dick in the process, but now you're in a position to cut away the lifeline and recognize that you can feed and prosper on your own. That's all in. And anybody that wants to argue, if you want to be all in, just quit what you're doing and go after it. Cool. You can do that. You can do that. There's nothing wrong with it. But I'm telling you, there are a multitude of ways to skin the cat. At the end of the day, a sharp object and a cat are the only two items you actually have to have. And so if anybody tells you that there's only one way to do it, tell them to kick fucking rocks.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I bridged the gap. I had multiple businesses before I ever left the corporate world. 100%. So I like that angle there, but the thing that you have to get comfortable with is making mistakes, and because you're going to make tons of them, and you just have to be able to not make catastrophic mistakes and,
or recover from catastrophic mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to this day, I make mistakes every day, and you just have to learn how to solve problems. The problems just get bigger and bigger as you get bigger. And so like, you can't shy away from any of that stuff. You just have to understand that over time you learn to trust yourself. And I think that that's where a lot of times the corporate employees struggle, because there's not a lot of self-trust there.
Well, there's a lot of inter-battle in the corporate space, right? There's no such thing as if the we rise, the me rise. Like that whole concept of team before self, that is not real in corporate America.
Especially in middle management. Like that's where it's cutthroat. I mean, you work with those executives and those guys, that's the reason that they have leadership training every other week, is because like they are not leaders, but they have no intention of being.
They don't want to be leaders. They want to be. Right. They want to be wealthy in a higher position of status in the company.
Yes, exactly. And so, man, we're all on some crazy tangent. So,
bro, it's a good tangent though. That's a solid conversation, Jeff. That's a really good idea. I'll be right back. Hey, boss, what's up, dude? I got this great idea. Fuck Jeff.
Yes.
That's corporate America, man.
That is middle management, corporate America as we know it, for sure. So tell me what you enjoy doing, my man, outside of business leadership and firearms training. What do you spend your time doing? You're a father of an 18-month-old girl?
1 year old.
1 year old.
1 year old, 12 months, 1 year old.
12 months. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's some changes that happen between 12 and 18 months that we have not gotten to experience.
Well, she's going to start moving and getting around on her own.
Dude, so. She started walking at 8 months. She started crawling. She started crawling at 4 months. She feeds herself. She demands to feed herself. She doesn't want any help from anybody. And if you try and help her, she smacks your hand away. She's like, dude, she's a little savage, bro. She's like she's this little savage. She just destroys her meal. And then she gets up and she like runs around and snatches the ball from you. And it's just little savage princess, this little girl. It's awesome. Yeah. Dude, I camp. I do a shit ton of lifting. I like powerlifting. I'm actually just started training for an Ironman, so that's on the docket to get knocked out. Yeah, dude. I like powerlifting, and I started training for an Ironman. Those two don't fit in the same breath. No, but you're about to see it, homie. You ever seen a 280-pound man complete an Ironman? Well, you're going to. I love it. We camp, we hike, we live in the mountains. But anymore, like, Savage is really a startup. And in the startup phase, there's not a lot of space to prioritize extracurricular activities. And so, you know, my fun time now really is when I'm not, I mean, don't get it twisted. I fucking love what I do. I love what I do. I get to stand on a range and teach law enforcement officers how to make it back home to their families because they're not getting taught by agencies to do it. I get to have a conversation with business leaders, and it only takes one. Like, that's the best part, Jeff. It only takes one business leader. I get to stand and have a conversation with a business leader and talk about how they can gain buy-in from their employees and from their executive and middle line leadership, and how they can actually build and influence and grow not their company, but their leadership capability inside of the company. And when they recognize that one begets the other, then you change the entirety of the company and you affect every single person's life that's inside that business. Like you affect one person, you can affect 1,000 people. I love what I do. I fucking love it. So what do I do for fun? I work. I fucking work. I shoot. I hike. I camp. I hang out with my little girl, play ball, usually pester the shit out of her when I can. I do this. Like, this isn't free time. This is fun time for me. I love this shit.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
That's a good question. So in 5 years, I really have a target for the company to be a $3 to $5 million business, to have 8 employees that are all soft guys, and every guy is running 3 to 4 small training groups, and each training group is no less than 6, no more than 14. And so those employees, those soft dudes that come in as an opportunity to kind of do a twofold thing. One, develop new mission and purpose for these guys so that they can identify and how to translate those skills into the civilian market. 2, provide networking opportunity for those guys to be able to build a network and build their own business ideas or concepts, and develop an entrepreneurial spirit. And 3, ultimately, is to position the company into such a way where I can step away from the business, not focus on the tactical training side of things, but really focus on the corporate leadership experiences and keynote speaking things. And so in 5 years, that's the position.
Awesome. I love it, brother. I love it. And do some shit with me. We're
dude.
Do some stuff.
We're going to do some shit, dude. 100%, bro.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be like people digging holes in a sand pit and then burying themselves and breathing out of a straw.
I'm not into all that. I'm not into all that boot camp shit.
No. That's not anybody yelling at anybody, just for shits and giggles, bro. It's like, I don't even know if you're going to learn anything out of this, but when's the last time you buried yourself in sand? It should be fun.
It's just a thought exercise. I'm still imagining you in a unitard doing 6 hours on a bike and then swimming for 3 hours in open water.
Bro, so I rode 5,000 miles across the country on a bicycle. And we did it to raise money for post-traumatic stress traumatic brain injury for an organization called the Task Force Stagger Foundation. And I remember the first time that I got into cycling attire, and I was wearing bibs, like chamois with the bibs, and I had a jersey over top of it. The first time I put on the cycling attire, I was like, dude, I didn't realize they made spandex that could fit sausage in it. This is stupid. And my riding partner, my riding teammate, Zach, is a good dude. He's a former SF guy from 7th Group. And he's like, bro, we got to get pictures. If you decide to go online, you go to Facebook, look up the Green Beret Adventure Team, and you can see all the photos of Zach and I in our cool guy bicycle attire riding across the country. It's not a pretty picture.
Oh, I can imagine it's not. Not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny, man. That is so funny. What do you think the number one lesson that you would take from your 17 years in the military that you could apply to business and entrepreneurship? What's the number one quality a business leader needs to have that you think is cemented in your background of 17 years in special forces?
A demand of excellence, not perfection.
Oh, I love that. I love that, man. Because we were talking about that the other day. That's exactly it. You get paralyzed by trying to perfect things, and we're about just moving forward.
It's exactly it, dude. Like, you see a problem, you action the problem. You see a problem, you identify possible solutions, you recognize potential second or third order effects, and then you fix, and then you go after it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this was, I said this the other day and I paused it and then I wrote it down. You have two options in life. You can do nothing and pray at the shrine of perfection, or you can do something and walk down the road of excellence. And if you think about the concept, the only way to ever be perfect is to never take action. That's the only way. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect plan, because a perfect plan requires no action. There's no such thing as a perfect. Yeah. But that's it. That's the piece, right? Like, don't demand perfection, demand excellence. We, especially in the soft community, they don't want perfect soldiers, because perfect soldiers are impossible to create. They want excellent soldiers, individuals that are well-rounded, educated, capable of thinking in the gray space, can operate independently, are going to understand the tactical application and the strategic value of the application. Right.
I think that's so important in today's marketplace and business, though, because you have to be more agile than ever. Because if you waste all your time formulating a perfect plan, a perfect rollout, it's going to be obsolete 6 months from now.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You have to have the ability to think on your feet and constantly be molding that initiative that you're taking on. Like, your tactical training business cannot be the same business 3 years from now.
It's already changed twice. It's only been in business for 6 months. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. It's a great piece of advice. I love that, man. And it brings me back to that conversation. That conversation was such a good conversation, and it was so accurate with regards to you cannot get paralyzed by every single minute detail. You just have to move.
Yeah. And it happens a lot, man. So I like to do leadership experiences sometimes, and they're experiential, right? So it's business leadership at the middle level leadership and executive level. My pre-workout's starting to kick in. So you guys didn't know I was drinking pre-workout. I'm a Mason jar. Don't judge me. I'm starting to kick in. I'm getting a little giggity. It's an experience for, like, it's middle management and executive level staff. And the whole concept about it is to give them a task. It's task-oriented experiential learning. It's not a boot camp. It's not like basic training. It's just an opportunity for you to go through as a group of people to figure out and solve a problem. And the problem, every part of the problem, there's always a solution. But what people don't realize is that the solution is get enough information to achieve success. But what ends up happening is they either don't get any information because they already have the answer and they don't get anywhere, or they try and seek all the information, create a perfect plan, and they don't get anywhere. And then they're finally like, well, we got to move because we're running out of time. So then they put together a haphazard piece of thing that doesn't do shit that they wanted to do. And it causes more problems for them, because now they actually have to take action on a thing because they're running out, the deadline's coming up, and they only move, of the 300, 400, 500 yards they have to go, they only move 20.
Yep.
And it's a really great way to demonstrate this concept. Right. Yeah. It is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love that, man. Hey, where can people find you, Adam? If they want to connect with you, where can they connect with you?
Man, if you guys ever want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at Savage Freedoms, at Facebook at Savage Freedoms Defense. You can send me an email, adam@savagefreedoms.com. You can also find me on Clubhouse. If you're on the Clubhouse app, look me up, Adam Smith, on Clubhouse. I've got my profile picture currently is me in a tactical flannel shirt on a range, giving you a thumbs up with a big old beard. That's also at Savage Freedoms on Clubhouse as well. And then at www.savagefreedoms.com. Savage
Freedoms it is. Grow that personal brand, man. We got to get you going on the
side of things. So I created an Instagram page, The Real Adam Smith.
I follow it.
Yeah, but I haven't done any posts on it yet because I'm still trying to figure that piece out. Hey, Jeff.
I don't even think you've let me into it yet. I've requested.
It's there's no I got nothing in it yet. Like I would let you into nothing. There's literally nothing there. So Jeff, you actually put me onto this. Is a really good thing. I had a conversation with a couple buddies. They're helping me out with website redesign and the new funnel redesign. And the website and the funnel redesign is going to be about pushing personal brand and connecting the Savage Freedoms brand to it. And then I'm also going to be hiring a VA here very shortly. And the VA is going to basically be personal brand, social media management. Good. And that's from you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's tricky, dude. You got to be careful with the VAs. They've got to really, you've just got to spend time training them so it is what you want it to be. Because I mean, your personal brand is like, if I was to follow you around, what the fuck would you say? And like, so it's got to be like your voice and your stuff. And so that part does take a little bit of time and kind of curation with that person, but it can be done for sure. Especially if it's like pulling videos and editing and stuff like that, because that part they can do very easily, and then you can throw on
that's the principal piece. Yeah. The photos and videos, not me having to edit all of them all the time.
Good. Well, I'm glad that was helpful. And, and I'm here for you throughout the whole process, obviously. And I want you to win as bad as I want myself to win. So like that's what I'm about.
That's it, dude.
I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you coming on. Guys, if you're not following this guy, get out there and follow him. He runs his mouth on Clubhouse constantly, like he said, Savage Freedoms, and he does keynote speaking as well. So if you guys need a keynote for a leadership event, things like that, he is your guy. So Adam Smith, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking your time today.
Dude, I appreciate you, bro. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing what you do. And, let's figure something out here soon about doing something. I don't know what it's going to be, but whatever it is going to be epic.
There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.